Hello, everybody. This is Podcasa Bonita. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Shirley. And it's going to be special today because we have a very special guest.
Yay.
Welcome, Tim. The Weedle Testicle on Tumblr.
Yeah, his name is Tim.
Yeah, the annoying guy who shits anyway too hard and does shit, I don't know.
Yeah, go follow him on Tumblr. Weedle Testaburger. We're so excited. He's going to be on season 12 too, we think, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, follow me if you want annoying sci-fi discourse, Steam Universe discourse, shit posts, annoying politics, etc., etc.
Got to get that plug in. And,
Right.
we did get, on the last video, we did get some questions, but we're actually going to save those questions for a later episode, one that's not so busy, because we have,
Quite
we're
a
going to have
lot.
like a special discussion on the episode Cartman Sucks when we get to it. So,
Alright.
I guess I'm ready to start. How about you guys?
Yep.
You must watch SpongeBob? I'm ready. I didn't watch SpongeBob.
Let's go.
All right. Let's get started with the first episode with apologies to Jesse Jackson.
Aired March 7th, 2007.
Randy Marsh becomes a social pariah. Sorry, patriarch. What the fuck? after,
Ladies
saying,
and patriarch as well.
after saying the N-word, we are not going to actually be saying the N-word in this podcast. Sorry if you were looking forward to that. On the Wheel of Fortune, which leads to tensions between Token and Stan. Meanwhile, Cartman angers a dwarf who comes to give a talk at the school.
I have a fun fact for this one.
I love this episode. I
Mhm.
really like this episode. The only thing that I don't like is when racist people use it for their own agenda when it's clearly not an episode promoting racism.
Mhm.
It's the
Can I
exact
Can I
opposite.
say my fun facts about this episode?
Sure.
Yeah.
It originally aired on my 10th birthday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's the only one that's ever aired on my birthday, actually, I think.
Oh, speaking of birthdays, my birthday was 2 days ago, so I'm 20 now. Not that anyone cares, but...
She's old as fuck. See, none of the episodes have ever aired on my birthday because my birthday's in May and they've never had a May air date. I don't think. Maybe in the earlier seasons, but they've never ended up on my
They might have
birthday.
done like season 2, 3 most of them for most
Yeah,
of
maybe.
Not my own, no.
But yeah, we're gonna talk about this episode. I like it. I like it a lot because I think you'd have to be really dumb and kind of like really close-minded to really not get the actual
Yeah.
message of it. Like,
Yeah.
if there really was a word that was just as bad as the N-word is to the African-American community, we would have banned it already.
Right,
Like,
if it was for white people, yeah, we totally would have.
I think, to be honest, what they pretty much do is they sort of say, right, we haven't got a word as bad as the N-word for white people, so let's go and come up with N-guy.
Right.
Yeah.
N-word guy.
It's a
That's
pretty clever way.
so
I
funny.
think it's a pretty clever way of doing it because it's like it's kind of like saying, look, white people can't really understand this, to be honest. So here's what it would be like if there was a word like that.
Mhm.
Exactly. And what I love the ending to this episode. I know some people
Yeah.
get kind of angry, but I love the ending. Is that Stan, which I think is like really, really, really surprising for Matt and Trey to kind of say. Basically, the ending of it, Stan, and Token have this whole dispute and everything. Token's kind of mad about Stan, who's trying to make excuses and everything for his dad using this racist slur. And even if it's accidental, and finally, at the end of the episode, Stan is just like, I get it, I don't get it. I don't get
Yeah.
what that word means to you. I will never understand what it means to you,
Mhm.
how it feels. So, I think that's, like, really, really, really smart. Because usually Matt and Trey try to, like, really explain themselves.
Yeah.
This is kind of like we just don't get it, but we're not going to use that word because we don't get it.
Mhm. During that storyline, I noticed a lot of similarities between how Stan and Randy reacted to the whole situation. How they both kind of, like, ignored how African American people feel about it and kind of made it all about themselves. Like, Randy wanted to be, like, try to claim discrimination and everything, and then Stan's trying to, like, say that Token doesn't have a right to be upset. But I love at the end where Stan kind of realizes, oh no, I was wrong, and takes a step back, which is what I love about Stan. And Randy, of course, doesn't, but...
You know what I think is kind of interesting? There's this sort of, it's almost grassrootsy the way they cover civil rights, because it's like, they kind of say it's not about, like, big important figures like Jesse Jackson or the little person or anyone else or the end guys trying to get across this message. It's about ordinary people on the low down, just in society, trying to understand, look, these are things that you shouldn't say, these are things that
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really interesting message, because it's like, obviously, civil rights leaders get a lot of good press, and I think, to be honest, they should. But it's not really, if they're just saying this is what people should do, and no one doesn't hold much water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I also really like one of my favorite moments and everything in the show, and honestly, I don't get how really racist and bigoted people can use this episode for their own agenda at all, because of this one scene where he's speaking. Randy has just created the African American college fund or something or whatever, and he's saying, now I hope we can get past this whole N-word guy thing. You guys honestly don't know what it feels like to have something that's not treasurable, about your past being brought up. You don't know what that feels like. And then it cuts to the audience of all African American people, and they're just like, what the fuck?
Doesn't one of them say, is this N-word serious?
I just realised, I think they predicted the Burger's rights activist movement.
Right.
Yeah.
Alright, I just need to point out that the beginning of this episode where Randy just so confidently shouts out the N-word on the Wheel of Fortune is one of the funniest South Park scenes they've ever done. I love that part.
Yeah, I love the bit where I love the bit in the car afterwards. I love the bit in the car afterwards where it's just like, Stan, the only reason Stan says that word is because he could have won $30 million.
I think it's so funny that Randy's trying to explain this shit to Stan, and Stan knows better. He knows. You don't need to explain it to him.
The funny thing is, that's a recurring theme throughout the whole season. Stan pretty much, most of the time knows better and can kind of see what's going on.
Right, and Randy totally doesn't.
Yeah.
No, Randy, it goes over his head all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing about this episode, it's not really the highlight of the episode or anything, but I think it's funny, is definitely the dwarf fight with Cartman and
Oh, yeah.
everything. That. Obviously, a cool laugh, it's a quick laugh to get in there, but I think that my favorite part of this episode really doesn't have anything to do with that. It's totally the message, which I really
agree.
admire.
Yeah, same. To be honest, I actually really like that, the bit where, where Brandy's kissed Jesse Jackson's ass, and then Stanley says, it's all okay now, and then Tony just says, Jesse Jackson is not the emperor of black people.
Yeah.
And Stan's just like, he's on my daddy boy.
Yeah, I love that part.
Yeah. It's I guess the real credit to Jesse Jackson, he's done good things, but he's done bad things, and I think the message is, don't pin an entire movement on one figurehead, because if they do something wrong, you make everyone in their community look bad.
Exactly. It's a good point.
So,
That's a really positive message.
I think, gosh, we've talked about that one a lot, but that one's such a good topic and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, it's
But-
I think that's one of the things about season 11 generally that's really, really clever. There's a lot of these episodes where they take really loaded social topics and cover pretty much all aspects in a really clever way. The other thing we haven't touched on is that bit where the little person kind of gets everyone to call Cartman fat, and then it's he can't fucking take it because he's
Oh, yeah.
and then he just immediately looks over at the little person and just
Oh, yeah. Where they're hey, fatty, and he's like, what the fuck? Who did this? Was this Kyle?
Hello, fatso. That's really, now you know how it feels. Oh, it's so funny. I think this episode is great. It's, going back to what you said, honestly, this sounds weird, but I call this season kind of this season of minority exposure, because it talks about the African American community. It talks slightly about the lesbian community, and sometimes not always in a positive light, but most of the time it's more in a positive light. It's
it does kind of show the way that sort of oppressed groups go through a lot of problems, and that isn't usually recognised by broader society.
Yeah.
One other thing I have to say about this episode is I can remember when I got season 11 and I found out the first episode was Will Poldy's Jesse Jackson. I kind of had this sort of glimmer of I guess dread that I got the same time I saw Mr. Garrison's Fancy New Vagina, because when you see an episode titled that, you're like, what have you done?
Right.
And you watch this and it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
This is the exact opposite of that episode. But speaking of an oppressed group, I think we should move on to Cartman Sucks, which talks a lot about that.
Aired March 14th, 2007.
Butters is sent to a religious camp for sexually confused children after his father catches him in a compromising position with Cartman. I love this episode. This is arguably my favorite of the season because it's one of the first episodes ever that like really caught my attention and really like made me laugh. I really enjoyed it. I think it's like a clever and funny episode while also being really emotional and dark at times, which is something I really respect.
I always forget how dark the jokes are where Butter goes to the camp and he keeps seeing all the kids like kill themselves. I'm like, oh shit! Like whenever I see that, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's like that's one of the things that I don't think any other show besides South Park can really do. This sort of really dark, really sort of kind of gruesome moments and actually make them really funny.
Mm-hmm.
It always kind of impresses me that they can do that.
And it really gets the point across because I'll discuss it more in detail when we have the discussion on this episode.
One quick thing I want to say about the stray camps is I kind of remember seeing there's like a Family Guy episode with a stray camp in it, and what they end up doing is they kind of do a similar plot to this, but much worse because Stewie is like ridiculously homophobic, but they don't actually call him out on it and show that he's wrong. And at the stray camp, they basically use it to try and get gay characters out of doing gay stereotypes, and it's like. With this episode, they do it right because they show it's not about trying to get these people to not do stereotypes. They're trying to get them basically to renounce who they are. Mm-hmm. And it's like a much more serious. The South Park writers actually understand it's a serious issue. It's something that has to be covered, for how awful and abusive people's rights it is.
Yeah.
And I think they cover it in a really really good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this episode is handled very, very, very well. I also, obviously, one of the best parts about this is Cartman's storyline, but really, I really enjoy Butter's storyline. And the thing is, my kind of fun fact for this episode, it originally was not going to be like this really heartfelt thing. It was actually, they were going to take a more comedic twist. Originally, Butter's dad was going to try and get him laid and everything in like Tijuana or something, so he could like turn straight, and that would be like a comedic approach. And then he goes to like this conversion camp, but it's just a bunch of gay kids having an orgy. Mm-hmm. And originally, I'm like, when I heard them speak about this in their commentary, I'm like, man, why didn't they do that? That'd be really funny. And then I went back and rewatched this episode, and like really the emotional impact. I'm like, God, that is such a better story emotionally.
Right, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for them for this.
Yeah, I think for one thing that sort of audio idea is something they kind of did in Rachel and Shirley. The sort of idea of converting a character through sex. So it's like I can see why they want to do that again. And also, I think I have a lot more respect for them doing what they did because it's good to kind of show to not make out story camps to be like something really so comedic because it's like it's pretty good for South Park to do episodes where they acknowledge that things can be really bad and unpleasant. And sort of mock them for it rather than sort of, taking a comedic side of it.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of this episode is the end. The payoff where Butters is like talking the Bradley kid off the bridge, and he goes, "But if I'm bi-curious and I'm somehow made from God, then God must be a little bi-curious himself." And I love that because it's him teaching Bradley not to hate himself because that's what the camp has been doing this whole time. And it's also kind of like slamming people who want to use religion to discriminate against gay people. It's kind of showing them how stupid they are.
That's the only reason why people discriminate against gay people.
Yeah.
But I also love about that speech and everything. I really love how this will kind of like overlap into my argument with the thing. You want to just go ahead and move on to the?
Oh, can I say one more thing? My favorite part of the episode.
Yeah.
The absolute end, the bit with Cartman's presentation.
Oh my god, he totally screwed himself over. So funny.
I love it.
So goddamn funny. Just seeing everyone's reaction, seeing him like desperately trying to explain it away, and then for him just go like, "Oh shit, you fucking did it, Cartman."
I know. I love when Kyle's like, he's not really gonna show everyone, and he does.
Yeah.
I just love it when Cartman screws himself.
I know.
I think he's one of the most satisfying to watch get screwed over characters.
Oh yeah.
In all of television.
Okay, well, I think we have like a special discussion and everything on this episode, and it actually came from kind of like the douche and turd episode that we did a while back. It came from a Tumblr post, and somebody like observed somebody took a screen cap of somebody else's observation, and I don't know who wrote it. I wish I did. I don't think I have any credits to who wrote it, but basically the argument was, despite that the episode tries to be pro gay and everything, trying to explain and be progressive with the homosexual theme in this episode, this person argues that it actually does more harm than good. They say that I'm kind of summarizing, but I'll read the last few sentences. It basically argues that it makes it out to seem like all gay people are miserable in camps and everything, and all people in these camps just they're constantly depressed and suicidal when they're gay. And these are the last. This is kind of like the last and main argument of the paragraph and everything. The person writes, Butters is coded as heterosexual, thus his suffering in the re-education camp is constructed as more unjust than that of all the other willing subjects. While the episode raises sympathy for all captives of exit ministries, it suggests a greater injustice in reserved for non-gays. And I can totally see, like, I'm not saying this person is wrong, because if that's how they feel about this episode, that's how they feel. I just kind of don't really get I read it through and everything, and I can see where they're coming from, but I kind of totally disagree with it. Do you want to, Rachel, what's your opinion on it?
Well, I haven't read the whole thing through in a while, because I read it when you first gave it to me, but it's been a little bit. But I do remember kind of agreeing with it. And I know you guys, I think you both said, you're like, oh, well, I don't think that's really what Matt and Trey intended when they made the episode, and I agree. But it's also kind of about intent versus impact. Like, that's not what they meant, but it is how some people saw it.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is kind of a good point to it, that they do kind of make the point that Butters is, like, so out of place here, because he's not supposed to be here, and because he's heterosexual. And I do think that it kind of makes the point that he's supposed to, like, be suffering a little bit more than everyone, because he really doesn't belong there. So I guess I can kind of see where this person is coming from.
See, yeah, I can see where the person's coming from. I just personally don't agree with it. Based on like my explanation, is that one, it wasn't their intention at all, but also, Butters, I feel like Butters' character works in this situation because he's oblivious to what being confused in this context is.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. He's completely unbiased. He's at this point, he's totally unbiased and everything. He doesn't really know why he's there. He doesn't know if he's he doesn't know he's there because, he might be gay or whatever. He just is told that he's confused, but he's just completely oblivious to the point where it's like,
you forgot to mention, I think that the paragraph had a whole thing about Cartman, about how Cartman was the one who was possibly gay and he got out scot-free or whatever. They had that whole point too, yeah.
About that. Which I think is a bit of a stretch. Cartman didn't perform anything out of, like, a sexual act. Like, it wasn't intended to be sexual. It was intended for him to be funny, which I don't think any 8-year-old boy is like this sexual and everything. They don't do this stuff to gain sexual satisfaction. So I felt like that argument was like a little bit flawed, because if you watch the episode, Cartman isn't doing it for sexual gratification. And also, like what I was gonna say earlier is that I really think Butters is the right character for this, because even though he's kind of coded as a straight character, and everything, he's totally ambiguous. Like, he really doesn't know what he's talking about, but that comes from a point of being so ambiguous, kind of oblivious to this, that he ends up giving that speech and everything, meaning that it's totally unbiased. Like, his speech is so unbiased. He has no place of prejudice one way or the other, so he's just speaking from what little he knows about it. So yeah, that's my argument.
All right, Tim, what about you?
I was going to say, the funny thing is, they say that Cartman's coded as gay and gets punished for it, but the thing is, the whole reason he jumps through all these hoops as trying to,
interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good point. And I think my last point, kind of arguing, not necessarily against this person, this is just like my own personal thing. I thought it would be cool for us to discuss and everything. Because honestly, if you feel like this episode impacts you that way, then that's how it impacts you. You can't change that. That's how somebody thinks, you know. But regarding the miserable and suicidalness of the camp and everything, I think that darkness works in the episode's favor because it's not even trying to really make a joke about it. It's like, no, this is serious. This is how terrible those camps are.
Yeah.
This is something, you know, these people, and not everybody who ends up going to a camp is going to commit, like, you obviously know that, but I think it's not necessarily shock humor, but it's a kind of a blow to the audience, like, no, this is serious for once. Like, this is something serious, and it's wrong. Like, this is what can happen to these people when you put them in conversion camp, you know?
Yeah. The other thing is, it's noticeable that in the show, kind of characters who, like, repress their gayness, especially with Cartman and Mr. Garrison, they kind of treat as being a lot less happy than characters who kind of, you know, understand they're gay and kind of accept it, like Mr. Slade, or Big Al, or at the end of the episode, actually Bradley.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's not really fair to say that they treat, you know, gay characters as being sad, because a lot of times it kind of varies depending on, like, the situation and what kind of characteristics they have otherwise.
Exactly.
Alright, do you guys want to go on?
Yeah, we talked a lot about that, but I thought it was something really cool to talk about. And now, we took so long talking about the first two episodes, I think we can speed it up now. We've got Lice Capades.
Aired March 21st, 2007.
An infestation of head lice plagues South Park Elementary, and Cartman spearheads a campaign to find out who has lice so that they can make fun of the unfortunate kid. The lice in Clyde's head try to escape when most of their kind are killed by lice shampoo.
This episode is so weird, but I really like it.
Yeah, this is one of the first ones that I watched. I know I've said that about a lot, but I remember being like in middle school and being on the old South Park website where they just showed them all for free.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I watched like
I think as far as I know, we never got that in the UK. It's like you have to, you know, it's like even go and Kiss Cartoon and buy the DVDs.
That's a bummer.
See, now I have all the DVDs, so I watch it whenever I want.
Right.
But this episode, I like this one. This one's kind of funny. It's really, I like it when a different character kind of gets the spotlight. I think that's really cool.
My favorite part is when Clyde's in the doctor's office and some girl's like, "What do you have?" He's like, "AIDS." I'm like, Clyde, oh my god.
I love Clyde is such a big baby.
I do love when they do that sort of, you know, deadpan thing where it's like it's obvious. Yeah, so it gets so dark and they present it in such like a mundane light.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And the other thing I've got to say that I was thinking is that whole sequence with the lice. It kind of feels like they're doing. It feels like a 90s environmental movie. You know, it's like, you know, one of those sort of, you know, cartoons that was all about save the rainforest and stuff. And the funny thing is that the irony is that back in season 3, of course, they did Rainforest and Rainforest, which is pretty much saying, you know, the environment is hostile, you know, native tribes and wildlife are dangerous, and it's not really worth saving the environment. And the thing is, this feels like them sort of going back and saying, you know what, we're wrong, actually, this is a serious issue.
Interesting.
And so portraying it like a really graphic way to show that.
But I also think it could just be like a major parody of all of those. I mean, it's obvious like the lice kind of parody, you know, movies.
Like disaster movies, right?
The environmental disaster movies, which is funny because originally they weren't. My fun fact is they originally weren't going to go that route. They originally had all of the characters, the lice, like, be all cute and everything, and they're like, it's too mean when we just kill all of them because they're just too cute. So they did the same thing with Timmy in the Thanksgiving episode, the Helen Keller the musical. They had Timmy's turkey as a dog, and they're like, shit, that's too sad. So they changed it to a turkey. So it's kind of funny whenever something is too cute, they can't do it.
Right,
They're
right.
like,
You think that they're all hardcore, but they're not.
It's like you guys. It's like they sort of, you know, they act all hardcore and like, you know, we don't care about anything. We're gonna make fun of everyone, and it's like, oh, we can't do that. That's too cute.
Right.
Yeah. Matt and Trey are suckers for babies and puppies and all that.
I think the light.
I think that
so adorable.
That's so
Yeah.
cute.
Was that thing about, okay, now, speaking to here, you're a fat bitch.
Yeah.
They can't do Tourette voice.
Alright, well, I think that the Lice storyline is interesting and kind of funny, but what I really like is, like, the kids' storyline with them all trying to figure out who has lice. And I love how, like, Laura the Flies it gets, and they're trying to, like, single each other out. And I think the ending is so clever, because, like, as the audience member, you're fully expecting, like, because you know that Clyde has lice, and you're expecting him to be the culprit, but it was actually everyone, so it was, like, such a cool twist. I love the ending.
Yeah. I remember that being, like, a really big shock to me when I first watched it. Like, I didn't expect, it's a twist. It's M. Night Shyamalan, so.
Right.
It'll be in this later. It'll be in this later, and I want to take the opportunity to make fun of science or something.
Okay, I think, are we ready to move on
Yep.
to the next one? All right.
I have one other thing to say about the whole, how graphic they made the whole sequence with the lice being killed.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
go
The
ahead.
funny thing is, I feel like that might actually be sort of commentary on, you know how, like, there's a lot of, there would have been around this time, like, loads of sort of, reporting about the Iraq War and stuff, and the sort of the sort of gruesomeness of what was going on there. And the funny thing is, I almost wonder if it's like a callback to I'm a Little Bit Country, where pretty much they didn't really, take the war that seriously. It was more about whether, it was more about, the US is going to do dodgy things. You kind of have to accept that. And this is them kind of saying, there's a certain point where you have to say, no, this is beyond the pale.
Yeah.
Cool.
Gotcha. See, I never thought of it that way, because I'm just, it's just a parody.
Yeah, me too.
I don't dismiss things like that. But, yeah, that's kind of cool. Oh, but another thing that's cool is the next episode.
Yes.
The Snoop.
Aired March 28th, 2007.
Hillary Clinton is in town for a big campaign rally and discovers that her vagina has been rigged with a bomb. Cartman suspects a new Muslim kid at school might be responsible for the bomb planted. I think my dad hasn't seen this one, but I kind of want to show it to him because he's such a big fan of 24. He loves the show 24, and I think the other day when I was watching it for this podcast, he heard, like, the beep, beep, like, from the show and everything. My dad was just like, you watching 24? Like, he got really excited.
I love the ticking clock. It's so dramatic and funny in this episode. It works really well.
Yeah. I think my favourite bit, comedy-wise, is the bit where there's a power cut in the warehouse, and then when they reset, the clock's reset.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of subtle, but I love that.
You're like, shit.
Yeah, this is such a great example of a good parody episode. Like, it's a full parody. Not kind of like Aspen. Aspen's a parody of all the, and Lice is sort of, is a parody, but this one's like a definite, like, the subject we're talking about, and I think it's super funny. I used to not like it as much, but now I look back at it and I watch it and I'm like,
I think I remember watching it the first time and, like, not really, enjoying it that much, but rewatching it, it's way better than I remembered.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I noticed is, I feel like it kind of shows why Cartman is, like, a really important character to the show, because it's like, he's really intolerant and intolerable, and the audience isn't supposed to like him, but they kind of have to have him on hand, because it means they can get across messages about, like, really contentious topics and have someone, who the audience is supposed to understand is wrong.
Yeah, and then the whole ending where Cartman, like, being racist stopped this terrorist threat, and he's, like, throwing it in Kyle's face. And I'm, like, totally like Kyle. Like, no, that's, like, not the good way to look at it. Like, I totally hate that happened.
Yeah.
me too. I'm just like, gosh, if I do show this to my dad, he's gonna take it the wrong way and everything. And I'm like, come on, man. I know it's a funny ending, and I'm not mad at it, but I'm on Kyle's side. It's like, don't take it that way. Come on,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, well, do you really expect Cartman to not be racist about something? It's kind of...
Right.
a lot of stretch in this show.
And I love how they call Hillary Clinton Hill Dog the whole episode.
Yes, I love that. They were like, I hope that catches on.
Yeah.
Hill Dog.
And then the only other thing that I have to say is that I thought it was really cute seeing, like, Kyle and Stan as, like, little hackers, and then Cartman as, like, a little detective. Like, as racist as he was being, like, it was kind of adorable, I won't lie.
That's one of the other big things about it. It's like, it's kind of fun to see them take these roles that in 24 would be super serious and really, really important, and then kind of, having them played by little kids and all the bureaucrats, involved with it being really useless and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I like, I think my favorite part about this episode, definitely my favorite part about this episode, I was going to say something else, but my definite favorite part is when
trying to invade you.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're British. I forgot.
That sounds like something somebody would try to say to get me to think that Britain.
Right.
Let's be honest, we've both been police fight to this point. There's no real point.
All right, do you guys want to go on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, are we moving on?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I also like the Ask Jeeves thing and everything where the Google platforms and everything. Anyway.
Okay.
Let's move. That was not
Oh, can I just say one last thing about the Snuke? What's quite funny is it's like we spent all this time talking about it and we haven't mentioned the Hillary Clinton.
Oh yeah.
It could have been like John McCain. It doesn't really matter. I think that's one of the things I like about it. It's like with these episodes where they have the political satire, it's kind of they'll make jokes about them in passing, but it doesn't really matter which politician it is. It's just a case of
Right.
who's really noticeable and colourful and we can make funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Well, they also kind of made fun of her for like a fake accent or something that she used in one of her old
Yeah, there was that too.
campaigns. But gosh, you wouldn't think of that now. You know, if you just watch this for the first time. But anyway, I think we should move on to one of my favorite. I
fucking love this episode.
Easter special.
All right. Aired April 4th, 2007.
Determined to get the real story behind why eggs are decorated for Easter, Stan ends up involved with an eccentric society that guards a legendary secret. See, okay, before I watch this episode, I always think I don't like it as much as I really do. I end up rewatching it and I laugh my ass off the entire time. It's so funny, and I always forget how freaking funny it is.
Yeah, I love this one.
Yeah, I still love that bit. The bit at the beginning with where Stan gets on like the guy in the rabbit costume, and it's just like, I'm a guy in a rabbit costume. I know that.
Yeah.
I just love when Stan like is obviously, especially with Stanley Cartman, the characters like are obviously smarter than they should be.
Yeah. And I love Stan in this episode because he's such a good character because he's always so exasperated and like, oh, god damn it. And he kind of has to like put up with his dad and try to figure things out. And it's so good here.
You know what's so funny? I found myself asking, like, I literally had a dumb moment. I found myself while I was watching this episode for this podcast, I was just like, I think Kyle could work in this situation too. I'm like, wait a second, he's Jewish.
Yeah. Like, no, he couldn't.
After I thought about
That brings me to a point. You know what I find kind of funny? Well, kind of funny, kind of awesome. Jesus is always exactly the same to Kyle, even though he's Jewish. And it's like,
I know.
that's a really nice touch.
Yeah.
They always do that.
Well, Jesus is Jewish too, so.
Right.
I mean, doesn't Jesus like call Kyle his my son at some point?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, when Kyle has to kill Jesus and everything, that is so.
I love that part just because he like makes him swear not to tell Cartman ever.
Yeah,
He's like, dude, I'm Jewish. I have a hang up about killing Jesus.
Yeah.
It's bloody brilliant, yeah. And the other thing I kind of like about it is the way they sort of make fun of the Catholic Church for being like really sort of hung up on its own doctrines.
Yeah.
I do feel like the rabbit idea is actually it's a really creative way of doing it because it's like a nice way of sort of simultaneously making fun of like the weird cliches we have on Easter and at the same time making a serious point about religion. And it's like, that's one of the things I love it when South Park does, when they take these really bizarre topics, really strange ideas, and use them to actually convey, coherent and clever social messages.
Yeah.
I love when they do that.
The whole secret of Easter is so funny.
Go ahead.
Like, the whole secret of Easter, where, like, they're going through the painting and, like, revealing that St. Peter was actually a rabbit, like, makes me laugh so hard.
It's so funny because it, like, legit makes sense. It's
Right.
almost sensible in a way.
I think the thing is what they're kind of doing is this, like, it's a lot subtler than the other episodes, but thinking about it, they're kind of doing, like, an Da Vinci Code thing, I think about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, only thinking back, do I realise that's what they were doing.
Yeah, that's so
It's
funny.
scary because it's a lot more plausible than Da Vinci Code.
You know what's funny? I feel like Matt and Trey put so much serious thought into this too.
I know.
Actually, we're legit serious. It's like that's why the Pope hat looks like that because
Right.
it has ears. And,
That's always brilliant with anyone when you get
Yeah.
all this development into things that sound absolutely ridiculous. And I was trying to remember, there's one more thing I was going to say. Oh, I think my favourite like running joke in the episode is where the guy from the American Catholic League keeps on saying to the Pope, what to do, and then the Pope's just like, Bill, I don't think that's very Catholic.
Yeah. I don't think Jesus is very Christ-like.
No, that's definite.
Yeah.
Jesus is not very Christian.
It's so funny to me, like, the hair club for men is, like, such a ridiculous and stupid thing that, like, it doesn't surprise me at all that, like, Randy and Grandpa Marsh are in it. And I love the part where I think where Randy and Stan are talking about it, and he's like, and then Stan's like, does Mom know? And he's like, no, it's the hair club for men, chicks wouldn't get it. He's like, I don't get it.
I don't hear it. Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah. And the bit where he's like in the car and he's got the hood on, and then they're just like telling him where they're going, and they're just like, as in he actually figures it out. But,
And then Randy's like, God damn it. I also love when Stan gets there, and one of the guys is like, you must be very excited, and Stan's like, must I? Like, Stan is so funny in this episode.
it's just brilliant bringing a character who doesn't understand, like, doesn't belong in the situation
Right.
into the situation.
Oh,
Exactly.
one more thing. I think one of my favorite parts, too, is when Stan goes to Kyle's house for help, and he's like, you gotta help me, and he's like, I'm kind of finger painting right now. Like, Kyle, really?
Yeah. One more thing I want to mention is St. Peter is a rabbit. Does this mean that Beatrice Potter is like a, some big prophet?
Maybe.
Maybe. Oh. I love this episode so much, but I think we're gonna go on to.
Yeah, it's the time to move on.
Yeah, we're gonna go on to D-Yikes.
Aired April 11th, 2007.
In a parody of 300, Mrs. Garrison falls for a woman at a lesbian bar and fights Persians to keep the bar from being renovated. Meanwhile, Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny hire illegal immigrants to do their homework for them.
Can I point out one thing that
It's
annoys me?
kind of... Yeah.
One thing that annoys me. Why do they wear pants and bras when they scissor?
What?
For censorship.
Oh.
Yeah, there's that, I guess.
For censorship. It'd be funny. It'd be funnier. Like, I guess it'd be funnier just to like have the bras and panties on, and have that censored.
I didn't even think about that.
That'd be brilliant, yeah.
Then have the entire like image censored if they're naked.
Yeah.
Like that's funny. My favorite line, and that's why I don't. My favorite part of this episode is, oh, scissor me timber.
Yeah.
Like, all the time.
I think my favourite bit was probably the bit where they're like, we want you to write an essay, and they're like, I wrote my essay.
Yeah, there are a lot of there are a lot of like cool mix-ups and like wordplay in this episode, like essay, and then lebo and lesbos. Like I really like that.
Actually, this
I
is
like a real
Lesbos.
I'm a sucker for puns in the first place, but I do really love that. And the other thing I noticed with like the parodying, I think one of the things that's really fun about this episode is, what's kind of funny is this would come out about the same time as like, Epic Movie and Meet the Spartans, those parodies that didn't understand how to parody. And we're just like, if we throw in this reference, then people will laugh. And the thing is, what they actually do is, there's a bunch of bits where like, the bit where they're like, so Mrs. Garrison had to go and make coffee for all of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's
That was
like, the thing
still
that,
did a parody.
yeah, the thing that reminds me of though, it's kind of like what Edgar Wright does. The guy did Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Oh okay.
Yeah, because it's like he does this sort of weird directing style where it's like when it gets to really mundane moments, he kind of makes fun of them by playing them, by blowing them, really dramatically in like a Michael Bay fashion.
Yeah. I had like war flashbacks in this episode, but they're like season 20 flashbacks because at one point Mrs. Garrison says "oh geez" in this episode, and I was like, oh my god.
One part that really also makes me laugh. Whenever the two characters scissor and everything, and whatever they say just makes me laugh really hard. When Xerxes in that deep voice, they like start scissoring and everything. Xerxes goes, "Oh, that feels super good." Super good. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so funny to me.
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's like, it's kind of weird the way they depict Persians is like kind of stereotypical, but the thing is that they pretty much do it in a way it's like, they could have been from any country. It's just the case that because what they're making fun of is like the way that they kind of, it's the way that they kind of use all this affluent crap and try and feel cool.
Well, they kind of portray the lesbians as stereotypical too, because they were all like very butch lesbians, which I kind of didn't like that much. But whatever.
That's the one thing I noticed. I was like, gosh, there are no femme lesbians in here. This is inaccurate.
I know.
I wasn't even angry. I was just more like, wow, this is just kind of inaccurate. You know, it's
Yeah,
not just fault.
I feel like, I have to be honest, I feel like all of the episodes with Mrs. Garrison, except for maybe Follow That Egg, have some pretty big problems. But that's probably this episode's one. But,
Yeah.
the other one good thing, though, is they do kind of acknowledge that Mrs. Garrison is kind of like appropriating the situation, because it's like, it's disadvantaging her, so she actually fights for them. And there's kind of like I can kind of understand what they're going for there. And the other thing is, I do actually kind of like the way they depict the Mexicans, because it's like, the funny thing is that, especially the ending, it's like it turns out they're actually super competent. And,
Yeah, that's smart, you know. Portrayed
yeah.
as dumb people, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're not really portrayed as dumb, they're just portrayed as like actually, you know, not understanding how to do their jobs. It's just that people take advantage of them because they can.
Yeah.
That's a pretty clever way of going with it.
Yeah, I think I'm ready for the next episode. How about you guys?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Oh,
one more thing. Sorry, one quick last thing. I feel like it is quite nice that they acknowledge that that Xerxes kind of is the way that they are, because they're kind of restricted by cultural values, and it's like there's not that much of clever social commentary in this one, but that is a quite a smart observation.
Yeah, I like that. I kind of like they equally make fun of lesbians, but also kind of empower them in this episode.
Yeah.
You know, it's a
Yeah.
little bit of.
I think it's a pretty good. It's probably not one of the best of the season, but it's still a pretty good approach and like a really well done parody.
Yeah, I think this one's just okay. It's probably like my least favorite, but even then, I don't dislike it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like by South Park standards, it's average. By the standards of most shows, it's kind of above average, probably.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to I love this episode, Night of the Living Homeless.
Aired April 18th, 2007.
Masses of homeless people invade South Park. The parents of South Park are trapped on a rooftop while their children face the causes of the epidemic. My fun fact for this episode is, at the end, I know I'm skipping all the way to the end of the episode, but that's easily the best part, is when they're singing California.
Oh, yeah.
To the homeless. And, they actually reference when Matt lived in, Venice, LA. He doesn't anymore. He lives in New York. But, when he lived in Venice and everything, he's like, yeah, there are a lot of people there are a lot of homeless people that live around me. And in the lyrics, you can hear Cartman singing, City of Venice, right by Matt's house. You can chill if you're homeless.
I love Cartman's lyric where he's like, California, yeah.
This episode is just funny to me. Like, I don't really, I mean, I guess it could be really offensive to homeless people, but no offense, homeless people are watching South Park right now?
I don't think it's offensive to homeless people.
I remember the first time I saw this, it was probably my least favorite of the season, but rewatching it, it's better than I remember, because I remember watching it, and I think I didn't remember the solution they come up with when they're what's the city called? The town that they go to that sent its homeless to South Park?
I don't remember.
Green Bay or something.
Greenwood, I think.
Greenview, I don't know.
But yeah, it's like, the funny thing is that they actually do have like a proper solution, or suggest a proper solution at that point.
Yeah.
Because they kind of, the bit where it's like, they treat, helping the homeless and actually giving them shelter as being like, creating more zombies for them.
Right.
Like that.
And this episode is obviously like a zombie parody. It's a parody of like Night of the Living Dead. And I think it's super clever because like I love how like the homeless people are like swarming people, and change sounds a lot like brains, which I loved.
Yeah.
And then I thought that I don't think this episode is actually offensive to homeless people, because they do kind of like say they're a nuisance, but they also comment on how they're often dehumanized, and they totally are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's kind of hard to draw a line between dehumanizing these characters and showing that they're dehumanized, and it's
Right.
kind of. I think I can see an argument either way, and one of them like makes the episode significantly worse, and the other makes it significantly
Yeah.
better. The other thing I do love is when they use those zombie stylistics for the zombie infection stuff, and with the mad scientist. I love the bit where Gerald is like,
Oh, yeah.
now I need to change.
It's like he's become one of them.
You're the scientist. My favorite part is when he keeps trying to shoot himself in the head and he keeps missing. Like, that's
It's like, oh god, that
I always
hurts.
forget about it. And then I watch it and I keep laughing. Oh, it's
My
so
favorite
funny.
part is, like, really kind of stupid, actually. It's, like, with Randy and all the other survivors are, like, on the roof, and Randy's like, oh, we ran out of food, we're gonna starve. And they're like, there's a box of Pop-Tarts over there. He's like, those are cherry, gross. It's funny, because I actually really like the cherry ones.
It's one of those episodes, like, you're really not supposed to take it seriously. It's just parody, funny, and everything, but it's also kind of like, it kind of opens your mind for a second if you think about it. It's like, wow, nobody really offers proper solutions for the homeless.
Yeah.
Like, we always pretend like we care, and then we're just like, oh no, let's pass them off to somebody else.
It is really weird. I think also this probably would have been, like, a really relevant episode, because wasn't this, like, about the time the housing crisis was starting?
The what?
The housing crisis?
The housing crisis in the US. It was
close
kind of,
to it.
Probably.
Yeah, it, like, kicked off quite soon after this, so it's, like, really timely.
Yeah, this is kind of off topic of, like, homeless people. Well, not really, but of the whole issue. But I love the joke where Kyle, like, keeps getting credit for Cartman jumping over the homeless on his skateboard. He's so mad. He's like, it's not what I was saying.
Oh, that is just so funny. Oh, but are you guys ready to move on?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? All right. This one, I think this one might, if not Cartman Sucks, this one might be my favorite of the season. Petit, Tourette.
Aired October 3rd, 2007.
Cartman pretends to have Tourette syndrome so he can say whatever he wants without being punished, but faking the condition begins to wear on his mental filter. So, one cool fact about this episode is that this episode is really, really, really praised in the, kind of the research and mental health community and the Tourette community.
Yeah, I didn't like the Tourette community, like, really love this one.
It portrays the illness very accurately, like they explain it. They're like tics, it's not just about swearing, it's different tics, and it's uncontrollable. Like, they explain it really well, and you can tell that they really did their research on this topic, and they don't really make fun of the people who have it. They don't, they aren't malicious, and they aren't mean. They're making fun of Cartman,
Right.
They aren't making fun of the people who have it, which I think is really cool, because you could easily do that.
Yeah,
but...
one thing I'm going to mention is, it's quite noticeable that the way that Cartman actually uses Tourette's to try and say what he wants is, it's totally different to the way that the actual characters of Tourette's do, because it's like, with, like, with Thomas, the kid with Tourette's, it's like he'll just sort of, off the cuff just, that's saying shit, or whatever. Whereas Cartman actually uses it as an excuse to insult people.
Yeah.
And it's like someone with Tourette's wouldn't really, use it as an excuse to insult people to their face.
Yeah, Cartman is just being Cartman in this episode, and you can always count on him for that.
It's kind of,
but
it's kind of like, it's like Cartman Unchained. He just does whatever. It's like, if anything, it's kind of like the archetypal Cartman plot. He finds out about something he can use to benefit himself.
Right.
But hijacks a cause to try and, be a dick, and then Kyle ends up being unmasked.
Yeah.
And it is, those kinds of episodes are really funny to me, because it's like, it's really satisfying to see, Cartman suffer for this thing, and the audience know that he's completely bullshitting.
I like the end of this episode a lot, because I love that I can always count on Kyle to, like, foil Cartman's plans, and in this episode, Cartman counted on it too. He, like, benefited from it.
It's like, I do feel like Cartman and Kyle have, like, a really funny kind of weird dynamic, because it's like, simultaneously, Cartman obviously hates Kyle and really dislikes a lot of things about him, but at the same time, he seems to have this really kind of, he's like antagonistic, but he needs him. He's like, he's like sort of Wile E. Coyote or Edward and stuff. He wouldn't he wouldn't have anything to do.
Yeah. And plus the thing is,
smuggler.
Yeah, the thing is that, like, I think Kyle and Cartman obviously hate each other, but on the other hand, I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, Kyle is actually, like, the only real friend that Cartman has, because Kyle is the only one who actually looks out for Cartman. Like, all the other characters are like, oh, fuck him, it's just Cartman, who cares, but Kyle, like sticks up for people no matter who it is.
Yeah, Kyle's too pure. Kyle is way too pure. I love him so much. But my favorite part of this episode, it's like literally easily the most juvenile part is Cartman saying, "One time my cousin and I touched wieners." Like,
yeah. He's like, winters is the cold time of year.
I do absolutely love when they do that sort of thing. Like, they give us something
Yeah.
So much. And the other thing I was going to say about Cartman and Carl's dynamic is, thinking about it, Cartman doesn't really have that much interest in actually trying to, like, genuinely harm Carl. Because it's like, for example, in the, back in the one where they, like, toilet paper in his house, it's like he tries to kill him with wiffle bats. He kind of understands it's not going to work. He just wants to, try and annoy Kyle.
Yeah, that's with Kyle.
The thing is, Cartman effectively he's more of an irritant than a danger.
Yeah.
Like,
And plus, Kyle's, like, way tougher than Cartman, like, on every level.
Yeah.
Cartman, I think, is under the delusion that he can easily kick Kyle's ass, but everybody knows, like,
Kyle's got this.
Kyle is a tough cookie. He's, like, equally, like, he cares about everybody, but at the same time, he wouldn't hesitate to, like, beat somebody up for being wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And on
He's
another...
JW, like...
And another subplot that I really liked in this episode is the one where, it's really, really small, but, like, it's where Craig is, like, fascinated with the Tourette's people. And he's like, if I can say this, I'd be so happy. He, like, loves Thomas. I love that. I love Craig in this episode.
It's so small and minute in this episode, but it's really, really, really resonated with Craig fans. Like, everybody who likes Craig talks about this. They reference it all the time. Of his most iconic moments. Like, it's so great.
It's basically pretty much like his catchphrase at this point. And he only says it like a few times.
Yeah, I love at the end where he, like, offers to fold Thomas's laundry. He's like, can I just, like, hang out with you sometime?
Yeah, that's adorable. I just wonder if Thomas appeared in the show more. I think it might actually have been, like, Three Kicks Thomas.
Right.
Yeah, I love that character. I really like how they represented the illness. Like I said before at the beginning, this kind of is, like, the episode, this is the season of kind of, like, really representing different groups of people. You have the African American community. You kind of have the gay community with Cartman Sucks. You have this.
Yeah.
I think that this is like a really awesome episode. Not only is it super funny, it's really accurate and it's really informative. You know.
Yeah.
All right, you want to go on?
I think for me, my favorite moment is the bit where like Carl comes out of the Tourette Center and then it's like, okay, you can apologize to Cartman now, and then he just leaves it and like winks.
Yeah.
That killed me the first time. It's just like, Cartman is just like such a, egomaniac, and it's just hilarious to see that.
Okay, but I actually have one more thing to say. Is that just to clarify, I do think Cartman's like a detestable person. He's a funny character, but he really is an irredeemable piece of shit. But the thing where he blurts out, where he's like, "I cry at night because I don't have a dad," that made me feel so bad for him. I was like, "Oh my god, Cartman."
Yeah, honestly,
he's like such a psychologically damaged character, but he's just such an ass about it.
I know.
Yeah.
Alright, want to go on?
Let's go on to more crap.
Aired October 10th, 2007, sorry.
Randy becomes South Park's hometown hero when the guys down at the local bar see the size of his most recent crap. See, okay, this episode gets the reputation and everything. Everybody just assumes that, women hate this episode. Women hate this episode. Me and my girlfriends laugh way too fucking hard.
Yeah, I like this one.
Oh my gosh. I think this is hilarious. Girls talk about the size of they won't admit it. Some girls won't admit it, but girls talk about the size of their shits all the time. All the time.
This episode's funny because I will admit that I'm not like the biggest Randy fan. I think he's kind of overrated, but I do admit that this is one of his best episodes. This is a really good one.
Oh,
I think my favorite moment is probably the bit where they keep on like doing really stupid things and then just going with Emmy award-winning series.
Yeah, like with Randy shitting in the toilet.
Yeah.
And then they stick the Emmy award in his big pile of shit.
Yeah.
I don't actually know the history, but my guess is Family Guy won an Emmy around this time, and they were like, "Fuck you."
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Definitely the funniest part for me is two parts. I really like where they're getting the ultrasound and everything, and they're treating it like a baby and everything.
Yeah. I was gonna mention that I love I love all the connections between Randy's crap and, like, having children. I love how the doctor calls it his third trimester.
Yeah,
I died at that.
And then my other favorite part is is definitely the most juvenile, again, where he's trying to break his own world record and everything, and he shits and he just spirals up on his big ball. He's just like, oh.
One thing I'm gonna say is I'm surprised that they didn't make. I'm surprised that Kurik's were the measurement, because you would have thought
more of a Randy episode, but I think Stan was really sweet. Stan was really sweet in this one because I loved how he like went to bat for his dad's honor against Bono, where he's like, "Can't you just kind of fuck off? Like, let someone else do something cool."
Yeah. The other thing is, you know what I think is like the basic message of this one though. You can carry a whole episode of a show on toilet humor, and it's like that's kind of the message a lot of shows. You know, a lot of people think is completely wrong. A lot of people, I think, a lot of people kind of think that toilet humor is those going to the nature and you can't actually do anything with it.
Yeah.
But it's really impressive that they actually do manage to do it.
Yeah.
And they do it. I think the funny thing is this episode, it's kind of like Not About My Anus or A Million Little Fibers, where they're doing this plot that they know is kind of going to make a lot of people pissed off because it feels pretty, silly and redundant.
Yeah.
But it works a million times better than those because the humor actually has some...
horrible. I hate it. I
Yeah,
talked
same.
about that last
Yeah, but the thing is that the reason bullcrap works and those episodes don't is because this actually has like a good self-awareness of what it's trying to do. The plot actually goes in an interesting direction, and the other thing is that Bono actually has a much more interesting and makes sense coherently backstory than Saddam Hussein or Oprah. And I have to be honest, I actually kind of like Vertigo as a song, but I do find those bits where Bono just comes in and is like, funny.
Alright, do you guys want to move on to Imaginationland?
Yeah, we're going to talk about Imaginationland as a whole, like we've done with the past couple of episodes. Any two-parters or three-parters, we're just kind of mush them all together because it's like a movie. So we've got part one, Kyle sucks Cartman's balls. Which,
aired October 17th, 2007.
you got the drawing of the balls, which aired.
October 24th, 2007.
And then you've got moistening of the scrotum, which aired.
October 31st, 2007.
Perfect Halloween episode.
Right.
I'm not really going to read the synopsis because everybody knows Imaginationland.
That's right.
They go to Imaginationland, and it's really outrageous. See, it's kind of like with Fantastic Easter Special. I always kind of forget how much I love this episode until I go back I go back and watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And this actually was going to be a movie. They were going to make it like a movie, and then they're like, fuck it, let's not try and make a movie. Let's just feed the hungry baby.
Yeah,
and
right.
Feed the Petit. No, don't sound too hard. That's Petit.
Yeah, I love in the first episode where they first go to Imaginationland and they're all on the boat or the ship or whatever it is, and the guy's like singing the song for like so long, and Kyle's like, "Are you gonna take us somewhere or not?" Like he screams and he's so mad.
You know what I think is like one of my favourite gags in the whole thing? The bit where it's like, he's going on about imagination and the body's just like, "Oh, you're gonna rape us?"
Yeah, Butters.
I like the imagination song part later on
when they have to recreate it.
Stan and Kyle are singing it, and they're like, no, it goes up at that point. It has like a key change at that. I love that. I think that's because it's kind of not really a South Park joke. It's so like it's a slower joke, but it's so funny. Oh my gosh.
I love that they brought back, like, they had a lot of callbacks, like the Woodland Critters and then Man Bear Pig. I love that.
Yeah, I remember that. That was like, I think when I was like 12, 13, I remember my friends at the school bus always like doing the Imagination. I was like, what's this song? And then just go and see Imagination song. I'm like, what?
I love how we constantly forget that Kyle fucking dies.
Oh my god, I know. I didn't forget, I just don't want to talk about it. I like almost cried. I'm like, I can't. It's so sad.
I think
you don't want to acknowledge that it happened.
Yeah, I feel like one of the interesting things about this episode is they kind of emphasize how important like having an imagination is and how important these fictional characters are to everyone's lives. But they also kind of make fun of how it's like they make fun of how innocent characters can be, like, actually pervert them in an interesting way. Because it's not just a case of, jokes that anyone can make. It's just a case of, let's take all these characters and then just barbarously slaughter them in the most, gruesome way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I give a lot of praise to this trilogy, not only for its action, not for its comedy, but I really think, like, at the end, it's almost whimsical. Like, it's really whimsical because it, you know, it really talks about like how, you know, it's kind of cheesy almost. It's like and corny, like these characters are, you know, made up, but they've made such a great impact on us, and it's cool. Like I love watching them and looking in the background and seeing what characters the animators
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, what characters do the creators hold dear? What's their some of their favorite characters?
That was Wario. It's Alien. It's pretty creepy.
It's Jack Skellington, Cinderella.
Yeah.
It's great. So I always love that because I'm like, God damn, this is kind of adorable. Almost,
Yeah, absolutely. I love the message at the end. Yeah, where they go, they kind of treat it as a real place, and they talk about how fictional characters are like more real than you and I ever are. And I just think this trilogy is so creative. I love it.
Yeah, I love the running jokes in this one. So it's like you have obviously the imagination song, and also like Cartman's like all this sort of stupid outfits, like the Sultan outfit, the King outfit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It's like,
And speaking of running jokes, I think you mentioned this already, but I love the sequence where Kyle and Cartman like are both jumping through the window, and then the government's like, "Why is it so easy for children to break into the Pentagon?"
yeah,
It's so funny. But yeah, I have a lot of respect.
You know, the thing I realised when I was watching the court scene.
Yeah.
Why doesn't Kyle point out that he and Cartman are below the age of consent in Colorado?
I don't know.
Because then they wouldn't have an
It would kind of ruin the
They're
joke.
so mad.
I guess now that we're talking about this, I should bring this up, is that I actually don't really like this storyline a lot. I know it's supposed to be funny that Cartman like is trying to get Kyle to suck his balls, but it's kind of uncomfortable to watch, and I find it very like obsessive on Cartman's part and like borderline sexual abuse. And I think the ending where Cartman forces imaginary Kyle to suck his balls is like, it makes me feel really icky, and I just don't like this storyline at all.
I have to be honest, like, that's true, but I have to be honest, I do find like, the fact that imaginary Kyle is like smiling so broadly is kind of funny.
Yeah, I'm still, like, on the other side, like, because I see that, like, that happens, and then everyone laughs except Kyle, and it makes me feel so, like, sad inside. Like, I hate that storyline.
My favourite bits is the bit just before the end where, like, the bomb blows up Imaginationland, and then Buzz is just there as he rebuilds it.
Oh, yeah, I love Butters in this trilogy.
Yeah, I thought that was also, like, super whimsical, too. I'm like, that's, like, that's kind of, like, not a South Park-esque ending. It's not, like, it's genuinely, like, sweet and heartfelt. Like that.
Yeah.
I realised, though, rewatching it, I feel like Butters is, it's like, the third episode especially kind of feels like never-ending story if Butters was in it.
Yeah. He works really well as, like, this really sweet, exasperated hero, where he's like, oh, I don't want to be the key. He's, like, really kind of bummed out.
It wouldn't work for any other character but Butters, because everybody else is either really cynical or kind of too smart, I guess. They're not kid-like enough. Even though they are kids, it wouldn't work with anybody but Butters.
The only one I could think of possibly working is Stan, because he's kind of like the, oh, God, thing kind of too. But if he did it, he'd be like, oh, fine. Like, wouldn't have the same humor.
I think he'd have too much of a hard time like Kyle. I think they'd have too much of a hard time, like, creating this Imaginationland and everything, you know? They'd be skeptical. But, yeah, I'm kind of done talking about it. I appreciate it for being...
One other thing. I do quite like when they did the thing with Imaginationland and Michael Bay and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
It's not an idea, it's a twist.
Yeah. Now, those are ideas, those are special effects. And the bit with, I have to be honest, the bit with Mel Gibson, watching it again, that is really funny to me. The fact that all this awkward facial expressions.
Yeah.
And I also love that the government project is called, like, Project Imagination Doorway. And the boys are like, that's not very imaginative.
It's funny that all the stuff in Imaginationland is super whimsical, and then when they do a parody of Stargate, they suck all the whimsy out of it.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. And then they bring it back at the end.
One other thing to mention is, it's only really a thing in the first episode, but the whole terrorist striking Imagination, that's kind of interesting because it's like, maybe it's symbolic of how, you know, after 9/11, people's minds kind of became overrun with, oh, well, there are all these weapons of mass destruction, all this terror that's going to strike us.
Yeah, like, don't let fear come into your heart or something. Something stupid like that.
Yeah, I kind of, like, had a thing to say about that. I'm glad you brought that up, because I would have forgotten. Like, you know, it's kind of, I don't know if that's what their intention was, because I didn't notice it until a lot later, but everything is like, terrorists are taking over our imagination and everything. I'm like, God, that's kind of deep. You know, that's deep. It's just like, kind of like imagine things way worse than we imagine these terrible scenarios, and we're plagued by fear and all of that. And I don't know. I thought that. I don't know if that's what they were intending. That might be.
Probably, I can see it.
Yeah, and thinking about the other thing is, by having them like get killed off at the end, they get like killed off at the end of part one, and I think it's the end of part one, but it's basically they end up getting killed off pretty quickly. Like the actual bad characters. So it kind of shows that maybe they're like very unproductive and dangerous with their goals, because they just end up creating more chaos and causing worse things.
Mm-hmm. Alright, do you guys want to go on?
Yeah, that's a great trilogy. It's probably one of the most iconic.
Yeah, I think for me I have to be honest, for me it's probably like, if it's compared to the Coon trilogy and Black Friday trilogy, I think it's probably like my least favorite of the three, but it's still excellent.
Yeah. It's one that a lot of people see as iconic. But we'll move on. We'll move on to Guitar Queero.
Aired November 7th, 2007.
We're almost done, y'all. Stan and Kyle are both hooked on Guitar Hero, which drives a wedge in their friendship.
This
Talk
is such
about
a good
going
one.
like, God, this is also the season of parody. Holy crap! I kind of forgot how much this season parodies stuff and everything.
Yeah, I swear like almost. I think it's every episode except the Petit, Tourette, and More Crap has like some kind of big parody in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a parody of like those like old rock star movies. Like I've seen this movie like 10 times. Like this specific movie.
I thought the heroine hero was like really clever and everything. Like
Yeah. I love how.
You know what I thought of? Do you think Heroin Hero is kind of like some kind of reference to Trey and Matt doing drugs when they like started the show? Because I remember
I don't think so.
Might be their personal experience. Maybe when they were at the Oscars, high off of acid, they were trying to
the thing they were on acid,
I think it had more to do with the fact that throughout this episode, video games are as a substitute for real things. Like Heroin Hero was like drug addiction. The guitars are like actual guitars. And then the scene where Stan is like playing the driver's game and he's like pretending to actually drive. Like they have a lot of that throughout the episode. Really clever.
So cliche, but I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing is they kind of show the game world to simultaneously reflect reality and be totally different from reality. So like Randy sucks at the game, but is really good at his own reality. And the way that like Fad, for example, is a gamer much more than a musician, really by his like personality.
Yeah. I love this episode. It's a really good Stan and Kyle episode. Kind of showing that they're nothing without each other, and that's pretty gay. Not gonna lie.
You know what? I think it actually represents. I think it represents a lot with Matt and Trey themselves, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, Matt doesn't do anything." You know, Trey's the real mind behind this. He could. Trey does all the work and everything, and like Stan goes off on his own and everything, and it shows like he really can't do this without Kyle, which is a lot. Trey has said it himself. I can't do this without Matt. I cannot do the show without Matt.
I'm not exactly sure where I read it from, but I remember them saying, I think it might have been 6 Days to Air, it might have been like post, but I remember at one point Trey kind of saying he doesn't really like do the political stuff very much. That's Matt's side.
Yeah. Like, they kind of need each other, so it's kind of like Stan and Kyle, like, both need each other just the same as Matt and Trey.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting that it's also kind of a turning point for Stan's character, because it's like, throughout most of last season, the season, and this season, the last, he hasn't really been cooperating with Carl that much. They haven't really been doing stuff together. And it's like, after this, you kind of get more episodes like Super Fun Time, The Giant Problem, in the next season, where they're, and an elementary school musical, where they're like, About Last Night, where they actually cooperate a lot more and do stuff together. And there's been a lot of episodes where they've kind of been acting on their own for most of the season. So it's kind of an interesting change of pace, really.
Yeah, I like this episode a lot. But are we ready to move on to the last one?
Yes, this is one of my favorite.
This one, please, Sparkles.
Yeah, here is the list.
Aired November 14th, 2007.
The girls in the 4th grade class make a secret list that rates every boy's look from cutest to ugliest. The 4th grade boys discover this and steal the list. They are, however, unprepared to deal with the results. Stan and Wendy reconcile after their breakup while trying to solve the list mystery. So apparently this is Angela, Matt's wife's favorite episode.
I like this one too. I love this one.
I can't say she's wrong. Oh, one other thing to say. I have a little bit of trivia. It kind of doesn't really make sense that Cartman... The thing is that Cartman knows after this episode that girls do not have balls, and he's forgotten by the time of season 20.
Yeah, well...
Yeah.
Maybe he's a short-term memory, who knows?
Yeah. And one other thing to mention, it's kind of weird, but I noticed in the title
True.
Just random.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think.
Oh, and also another thing, Tim actually, before we recorded, I think yesterday you showed me, I didn't know about this, but there was a deleted scene from this episode, that there was an alternate ending, and in the clip, it's a sound clip, but there's also a video clip somewhere out there, where you do find, where he's like, oh, I don't know, and then Wendy, like, sneaks in and is like, oh, I looked, the ugliest is Cartman. And Cartman, it later cuts to Cartman and everything being like, that's fine, it matters what's on the inside. And then then it's silent for a second, and he's like, ah, fuck. And then the episode ends.
I should have kept that. That's so funny.
Yeah. It's like, it is kind of sad they had to cut that just time, but,
yeah.
I think, I can't really decide which I like better, that ending or the ending we actually got. Because,
Right.
like, that ending that we got is really kind of cute.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, it's kind of a joke they've done before.
Yeah, I do like Kyle's message at the end where he says, I don't want to find out I'm good looking and become a total shithead when I grow up. Like, kind of how Clyde's gonna do.
That is a pretty interesting message.
Yeah. I like Kyle.
Where do you think Kyle is on the list?
I think he's somewhere in the middle. I don't think he's, like, on either spectrum.
Someone came up with a headcanon that Wendy Butter's the cutest, and think about it, that probably makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who do you think is actually the cutest, though?
I have a feeling
I don't know.
probably towards the top. Stan somewhere in the middle, Kelly somewhere in the middle, and Carlos right at the bottom.
Alright, I want to talk about the actual episode instead of the actual list. I think the best part is when Kyle's at the dinner table and he's like, Ike, am I ugly? Yes or no? And Ike looks directly into the camera like it's in the office. He's like, he's like, wow.
I think
I love
my
it.
favorite line is probably the bit where it's like, okay, the plan failed, we leveled up. Really, the girls do not have balls.
Yeah, he's like, Operation cannot possibly fail a second time.
I think it's so clever. I think a lot about this episode is very clever. This is the second time Bebe has killed Kenny, the first being in proper condom use.
Yeah, I think Bebe and Clyde are both awesome in this episode. I love Bebe as like this badass manipulator, and then Clyde is like this arrogant shithead, and they're both really, really funny.
It's like one thing though. You know the bit at the end where Baby's just like, look at his shoes. She couldn't wear them. She has square feet.
Yeah.
I love Wendy. She's like, oh my god, is that a cute strap? And Stan's like, Wendy.
Well, I love the girls in this episode. Like, I know
Yeah.
it kind of like bases on
Yeah.
stereotypes, but I love it whenever the girls get exposure anyway. So
Yeah, I love their whole meeting thing where like, if does that please and sparkle with all the girls? And they're like, yeah. Like, it's so cute.
Yeah. I think one of the things I have to say is what's kind of interesting is they kind of show, at the same time as showing, looks don't matter, they also kind of show how harmful being insecure about your looks can be to your self-esteem.
Yeah.
Because it's like, Bunny's parents trying to around him and then him being like a dick about it. What's kind of funny is that maybe that's sort of a reflection of, how unpleasant the upbringing of models can be and how unpleasant they tend to become.
Maybe. I like Kyle's episode a lot, because I've noticed throughout the series that, like, he kind of has the least interaction with the girls. He's never had a girlfriend. He doesn't really notice the girls or, like, seek validation from them ever. Because I think he's kind of confident in himself, but once, like, looks are brought into it, he, like, kind of becomes unhinged really quickly and, like, tries to burn down the school and shit. So, I think that's really interesting.
He's so sensitive.
I know.
Yeah. I do remember them saying Stan was, like, the most sensitive back in that.
I think Stan is, but Kyle's more sensitive than people think.
I think the thing is,
Kyle's more sensitive in the fact that he'll overreact.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I think the thing for me is Kyle is kind of like the most political character, or the most political mouthpiece character.
Yeah.
Whereas Stan is kind of the most emotionally mouthpiece character. Because it's like with episodes, when they do episodes that kind of where Stan's in like a really down state, there's this sense that it's like they kind of genuinely you're supposed to genuinely feel for him. I kind of most of the time I actually do. Like, even in episodes I don't like Raisins, the bit where he's just like, you don't know how it feels inside.
Yeah.
It feels so genuine.
Yeah, he's very relatable, yeah.
Yeah, they're really good at writing Stan's, like, impression and stuff.
Yeah. One last thing is that I love, like, the part where Kyle's looking at the list, and then it becomes, like, a bigger and bigger wide shot, and, like, there's no way the bathroom is that big. That always makes me laugh so hard.
Yeah. The other thing is, what I find kind of funny is there's that bit where Stan, like, tries to come from him, it's just like, who cares what dumb girls think? And it's kind of interesting because it's like,
Yeah. Stan and Wendy are really funny.
Yeah, and it's like even with season 20, he's kind of one of the ones who's actually trying to, is actually sad about the gender war and wants it to stop.
Yeah.
So it's like, if anything, the funny thing is, Stan is, in a way, probably one of the more effeminate characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I really don't want to start this debate, but I would say that, like, all the characters, I think Kyle would be, like, the biggest feminist, I guess, if I had to pick one. But I think Stan's up there.
Me too.
Yeah.
I totally think Kyle would be the biggest feminist. He totally is.
Yeah.
I think you know what? I would love to see more of a friendship between Wendy and Kyle.
Yeah.
I'll have to think of which episode it is. Oh, it's the hoarding one.
Because they are so similar. They're so similar.
I love that kind of stuff. They do it in this episode as well, where it's like Stan and Wendy kind of get along so well that when one of them's in trouble, the other will reach the third to help.
Right.
I love when they do that.
I like them working as a group. I think Wendy could easily be utilized a lot more than she is, and she is. She does get when she's used really well.
Yeah, I think Wendy's such a badass because I think she's the only character who's never been outsmarted by Cartman. Because even Kyle has his moments where Cartman gets the better of it, but I think Wendy always comes out on top over Cartman.
Yeah, it's like when Wendy does get outsmarted, it's usually like she kind of sees what she did wrong in the end,
Right.
or it's like she actually does. There's like episodes like Tom's Red Plastic where she does kind of get made to look stupid, but in the end, she actually does kind of get her comeuppance.
Yeah.
So it's like she's kind of a little bit scheming, but always kind of, always a very smart character.
Yeah.
I'm in the Wendy Protection
things-
Club.
Huh?
I'm in the Wendy Protection Club. I
Yeah,
want to protect
me
her
too.
with all of my might. But yeah, I think we're done. Yeah.
The other thing to say is, I feel like it would have been interesting if with season 20 they actually have some kind of interaction, so that Stan and Wendy actually got involved with what Carl was
I think
doing.
Wendy should have been in season 20 more. Totally.
Yes.
Oh, a lot
definitely.
more. She
Yeah,
definitely
I think
said
that was probably one of the things I disliked about that season most, other than Butters being like completely flat.
Yeah. Alright, let's not go into season 20. That'll be too long. Alright, this is the wrap on season 11.
One thing I will say is, does the season sparkle with you guys?
No. Oh, this season.
This season, yes. Yes.
Sunshine.
Absolutely. Sunshine.
I'm so glad they referenced that Stephen True because it's brilliant.
Yeah, well, I guess that's it, you guys. This is a long one, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's always fun when you have another person in the mix.
Yes.
So, Tim, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
We're so excited to have you join us.
Yeah, and Tim will be with us next episode too.
Yeah, next episode.
Yep.
So, we're excited. Thank you guys for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
Comment.
And you guys, thank you so much for having me.
Yep,
Yeah,
of
Really
course.
awesome doing this.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.